All right, today I am cutting out the boxing for the sides of the cushions, and if you look closely, you'll notice that there are two sets of lines on the fabric. That's because I made one set of calculations when I started doing the project, and then I changed my calculations today. I decided that it would be better to have a cushion that was too tight around the foam than one that was too loose. And I also decided that I could always cut out the footprint of the cushion to be whatever size I need it to be, but I can't change the depth of the cushion because the foam is 3 inches and that's what I have to work with. So I initially had thought that I would use a 4-inch boxing on the side, and that would give me a 1/2 inch on either side for my seam allowance. But I think that that's going to be too much, and that there's a potential for the cushion cover to then be baggy. So instead I'm cutting them out at 3.5. And the way that you measure the boxing side measurements is by actually measuring the top plate after you have the piping sewn on, because you want this to be exact. You want the corners to line up accurately. For the back boxing, you're going to measure the distance where the back boxing where the zipper goes. You're going to measure the size of the cushion plate, plus you're going to add some length to it, because when you sew the zipper in place, oftentimes it kind of makes that be tight and it sort of shrinks up that fabric a little bit. So you're going to take your measurement, mine happens to be 19, and you're going to multiply it by 1.015, and that gives me approximately 19.25. So that's what I'm going to cut out for my back zipper. All right, the next step in the process is I cut out all of my boxing strips, and so I have a front, 2 sides, and then my back boxing strip that is going to hold the zipper. And so this strip is as wide as these plus the width of my zipper, and my zipper is 1.25 inches. So you add that to the strip before you cut it out. I also want you to notice the direction of my stripes. They're all going in the same direction, and this is my cushion, and this is the back here. So my stripes on the front are going to continue down. The stripes on the side are going to be the opposite direction. Okay, and that's pretty normal for this type of box cushion. So the next thing that I'm going to do in this process is I'm going to sew my zipper into place in the back plate, and then I will sew together all of the boxing strips, and then I will attach them to the top of the cushion plate. And so I'll take some more footage of me working on those steps now. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a stitch that is half the width of my zipper. And so half the width of my zipper is 5/8. I'm just going to mark that on here so I don't forget. And I'm going to put that stitch in here 5/8 inch from the folded side of the fabric. So right now what I'm doing is I'm setting up my magnetic sewing guide to be the distance that is left on the other side of the fabric from where I'm going to be putting the stitch in. So that is 1 3/4, and so that I can really easily keep my stitch straight, I'll just run it along this. Now this stitch does not have to be closed at the end, so I'm not going to go backwards over this stitch at all. so your zipper plate should now look like this. You've got the stitching all along it here. And now you're gonna just cut open this edge. And you can cut this with scissors because it's gonna be hidden anyways. Okay, so what we're going to do next is we're going to attach the zipper here. We're going to begin sewing along the edge. Make sure you forward and backwards to lock the stitch in place. Then you're going to come along the zipper edge here, sew along this, forward and back again to lock the zipper in place. Then go all the way to the end and do the same thing. And then you'll reverse and do it on the other side. All right, this is by no means perfect, but this is what you should have at this point. Stitches along both sides of your zipper, and they should be locked into place there. On the opposite side, you can see just how unstraight this is, but it's gonna work. And this is my first one, so I'm gonna be okay with this. Plus, who's gonna look at the zippers on the back of your cushions? So I'm gonna keep going forward with this. All right, the next thing that you want to do is you want to take your seam ripper and you want to rip out that tack stitch that you made that is seaming together where the zipper is. Now, I didn't do this, but it probably would make it a lot easier if I had a longer tack stitch, like 6. Mine is probably 3. So it's going to take me a little bit longer to rip that seam open. All right, we have a working zipper. If I had to do this again, which I do 7 more times, I would make the area that I sewed together when I flipped it over like this, that distance that I measured, I would make that wider so that this lip could be a little bit wider over the zipper. Right now it doesn't give me a lot of room for the zipper to be able to hide within it. This could also be because I sewed a little bit too close to the zipper itself. So I'm going to experiment with this on the next cushion and see how it works. But I'm pretty happy that I was able to make this, and it's my first zipper, so woohoo! And I'm going to put the boxing together now so I can attach it to the top plate. All right, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to sew the boxing together. So I'm going to flip these to match each other, and then I'm going to sew, I've made a 1/2 inch seam allowance, so I'm going to sew a 1/2 inch on this end, and then I'm going to connect the next one with a 1/2 inch, and so forth. And one thing that I made sure of was that my zipper plate fits perfectly along the back edge. If it didn't, then I would want to trim it down so that I didn't have any extra fabric. All right, so this is what you should have at this point. All your boxing sewed together, and then miraculously this is going to get attached to the top of the cushion plate. I'm going to try to do that next, and cross your fingers, wish me luck. All right, just to give you an idea, I'm going to start halfway down on one of the sides, and you can see I've got the right sides of the fabric pushed together. I've got my needle all the way over to the left-hand side, and I've got my cording under that area in the cording foot that allows it to fit through. You want to sew as close to the cording as you can. And at the same time, you want to keep those raw edges lined up together on the outside so that you can get to the corners and then turn the corner just the way you did when you put the cording on. This is the part I'm nervous about because you can't see what you're doing at all. Well, after a few hours, I was finally able to get the boxing strips attached to the top of the cushion. It doesn't look too bad. I guess it's my first try. I did have to make a few minor adjustments. The first thing, well, I guess the major thing, was that my boxing strips were originally cut to the right dimension, but then I second guessed myself when I went to sew them on, and I cut one of them about a ½ inch, and that ended up causing me some real problems in the end. I actually had to make an extra section and sew it onto the back of the cushion here because I cut that area away and didn't have enough boxing strip to go around. And when I sewed it on, there was a huge gather over here where there was all this extra piping and not enough boxing. So the next step is to cut the underlining material and to fabricate the strip of fabric along the front so that in case I don't sew that correctly, you'll have fabric rolling over onto the front edge instead of that underlayment fabric. So I'll show you that next time.